Okay, here are the chapter 7.3 notes, the unit circle. We are on page 7, and we are going to take what we did in these first two sections and put them together. So we're going to use both the special right triangles and the trig functions and the reference angles. Sorry, I said both, said three things. And we are going to make sense of what we got going on here. First off, our angle. Let me blow this up a little bit. 330 degrees. So 360 would be all the way around, so we are going almost all the way around. Here's our 330 degree angle. Okay, which means we have a reference angle of 30 degrees. And so here's how we're going to do this. We are going to draw in a right triangle. We've got that 30-degree angle in the corner. We know that all these triangles have the same ratio, so, we're going to kind of we're going to make this hypotenuse piece 1. So then it looks the way we're used to, the way we did the special right triangles a minute ago. With a 30, 60, 90 and a hypotenuse of 1, we know that short side is 1/2. We know the long side is square root of 3 over 2. Okay. Now notice something. I labeled the sides of the triangles all positive because they're the lengths of the sides of a triangle. If I want to think about where this point is, I don't know what's going on here. In terms of my x and y coordinates, my x, we went over square root of 3 over 2. My y, we went down 1/2. So this point right here, this corner of that triangle, would be at the point square root of 3 over 2, negative 1/2. Okay, so that's kind of how we're going to look at this. The sine of 30, so sine of 330, right here we're using this angle, opposite over hypotenuse, 1/2 over 1, but that 1/2 is going in the negative direction. So the sine of 330 is a negative 1/2. The cosine of 330, adjacent over hypotenuse, positive square root of 3 over 2 over 1. So we get positive square root of 3 over 2. And then I noticed that this is a mistake. This should say tangent and cotangent. And that's going to go through. Obviously cut and pasted here and was not paying attention. Tangent and cotangent. So the tangent of 330, opposite over adjacent. So let's write that over here real quick. The side that's opposite 330 is negative 1/2. The side adjacent is square root of 3 over 2. I get negative 1 over the square root of 3. We don't want that radical in the denominator, so we end up with negative square root of 3 over 3. Cosecant of 330, 1 over sine, so 1 over negative 1/2 gives us a negative 2. Secant of 330, I'll write that one over here, is 1 over the cosine of 330. Just to remind us, 1 over square root of 3 over 2. 1 over means take the reciprocal, so I got 2 over the square root of 3. Again, we're going to rationalize the denominator. And we get 2 square roots of 3 over 3. Cotangent of 330 is 1 over the tangent. Which also means it's the reciprocal of tangent. So you guys, I'm going to take what I have up here, this tangent ratio right here, and I'm going to flip it over. Square root of 3 over 2 over negative 1 over 2. And I get negative square root of 3. Notice something really quick, because we are in the fourth quadrant. Cosine and secant, its reciprocal function, those are both positive. Sine and cosecant, its reciprocal function, those are both negative. And then tangent and cotangent are both negative. So the sine of a function and its cofunction will always be the same. Okay. Oops, I didn't fill in that reference angle. Reference angle, 30 degrees. Okay, B. We have a 225 degree angle. Which puts us right here. My reference angle, this little bit, we are 45 degrees away from 180 at 225. So I'm going to do the same thing I did, just to help us pull everything together. There's my triangle. I've got a 45 degree angle in the center there. So my hypotenuse is 1. The lengths of the sides are square root of 2 over 2. They're both the same. And because we are in the third quadrant here, if I am going to consider the coordinates for this point, my x is going in the negative direction. My y is going in the negative direction. Everything in that third quadrant is going to have a negative x and a negative y. So my sine, opposite over hypotenuse, is going to be negative square root of 2 over 2. My cosine, adjacent over hypotenuse, the same thing. My tangent is my opposite over adjacent, and those two numbers are exactly the same. So let's write that over here. Tangent of 225 is going to be negative root 2 over 2 all over negative root 2 over 2. Anytime we divide a number by itself, we get 1. Okay, so let's take a look at our reciprocal functions. Cosecant is 1 over the sine. One over negative square root of 2 over 2. We're taking that reciprocal. You guys, I make these notes repetitive. I know that sometimes as we're watching, especially because I think I tend to speed up and talk a little faster so these don't get too super long. It's really easy to kind of lose track of what you got going on. The 2 over 2's cancel. We ended up with negative square root of 2. So cosine looks exactly like sine at 225. So the secant should look exactly like the cosecant. Cotangent is 1 over the tangent. So 1 over 1, still positive 1. Okay. Notice something. Sine is negative in quadrant 3. So the cosecant is going to be negative. Cosine is negative in quadrant 3. So the secant is going to be negative. But the tangent is sine over cosine, negative over negative. That's going to be positive in quadrant 3. Here is our very last one. Here's our 120 degree angle. Which means our reference angle is the other bit that we need to get to 180. So our reference angle is 60 degrees. We are going to go ahead and draw this triangle in right now. That makes this a 30, 60, 90 degree triangle. So this is my short side opposite my 30 degree angle up here. This is my long side. Notice that we are in that second quadrant, so this point right here. My x is going in the negative direction, negative 1/2. My y is going in the positive direction. And I am just labeling that point for reference. Okay. So, the sine of 120, opposite over hypotenuse, is going to be square root of 3 over 2. The cosine adjacent over hypotenuse is negative 1/2. The tangent move. So we're using the reference angle to find the values. Okay, because this is going to be symmetric across the x and y axis. So we're the same distance away from the x-axis, the same distance away from the y. The x and y coordinates are going to look the same even though the signs may be different. So cosecant, 1 over sine. We've done this before. If we take the reciprocal of square root of 3 over 2, we get 2 over the square root of 3. Knowing that we don't like that radical in the denominator, we rationalize and we get 2 root 3 all over 3. The reciprocal, so we're at secant, reciprocal of negative 1/2 is negative 2. And the reciprocal of tangent, 1 over negative square root of 3. We rationalize that denominator, we get negative square root of 3 over 3. Notice something, the sine and cosecant again, both positive, cosine and secant, both negative, tangent and cotangent, both negative.